crave to move towards things that we believe will give us this lasting happiness. And from the Buddha's point of view, that was incredibly sad. He looked around at the world and he saw this happening, these millions and millions, billions of people in his mind's eye. Obviously, he couldn't see billions of people. In his mind's eye, he could see all these people all like looking for something in the wrong place. And I remember I had a real sort of little insight moment into this once when I was camping. I'm not a good camper. In fact, I don't think I've camped since then. But anyway, I was lying in my tent and there were these flies in my tent, and they were trying to get out. They were trying to get up to the light. The sun was shining through the tent, and the tent was blue. So they were heading up towards the blue light, like as if it was the sky. And I had the tent flaps open and I was going, "You're going the wrong way. You just got to go that way. You got to go that way." But they were completely ignoring me. And I'd had this moment, I thought, oh yeah, that's what we do. That is what we do. The Buddha and other enlightened beings are going, "Go this way works." And we are going, yeah, and banging our heads like that against the top of the tent. So it's not that there's anything wrong with external things. We're not saying they're evil or bad, or that there's something morally suspect about you for having those kind of wishes, for love or success or money or all of those things that our culture sort of feeds us on. It's kind of we naturally long to find happiness. So we move towards the things that we are told will provide it. And the thing with looking in the wrong places is that ultimately it fails. So even if in my own life, I can certainly see that there have been peak moments in my life when I was like, oh, finally, I've got all the pieces of my jigsaw. They're all like just right. Okay, I have finally arrived in my life the way it's supposed to be. I can relax now. And then, of course, something goes wrong with one of those pieces, sometimes in a small way, sometimes in a dramatic way. And suddenly they're not in the right place anymore. So I'm back to kind of trying to get them in the right place. So it's not that there's anything wrong with the pieces of the jigsaw. It's the expectation that we can get them all to be the way we want them, and we can keep them that way. That's the problem. And then we keep being disappointed by that. So we just keep trying again with a slightly different set of jigsaw pieces. So we kind of get stuck in this loop where that craving for happiness and looking for it in these places actually leads to suffering. So we get the suffering, which leads us back into the craving, which leads us back into the suffering. So we're all kind of stuck in that loop to varying degrees. And the Buddha's teaching, and the teaching that I'm going to talk about today in relation to meditation, is that there's an alternative to that when we have that craving to going into the suffering. So if at that point instead we can take a breath and have some trust and confidence and place our trust in our direct experience of what helps, what really helps. That's the topic that we're going to be exploring this evening. And the Buddhist word for that is Sraddha, which some of you will have heard of, Sraddha, which is translated as something like trust, confidence, faith. It's not faith in the kind of Judeo-Christian sense. It's more this sense of a direct translation it is this idea of placing your heart upon. So it's a sort of heartfelt trust, but it's not a blind faith. It's a trust in something because of your own experience. So we've got craving and we've got Sraddha, and as I said when I did the introduction to the spiritual faculties a few weeks ago, they both involve a sense of longing. So in both cases that we're sort of drawn because we're longing to find happiness. It's just that they both have a different route. One is through the external world and one is through practice. So whether you consider yourself to be a Buddhist or not, that doesn't really matter. In a way, if you can just think of Sraddha as a quality, you already have some of it, or you wouldn't be sitting in this room. There's a million other things you could have been doing on a cold Wednesday evening. You wouldn't be sitting in this room if you didn't have some level of Sraddha, some level of trust or confidence that the teachings of the Buddha, in terms of the teachings of meditation, have some value. What I was going to do at this point was put you into pairs and get you to have a little discussion with each other about that, but I'm slightly short of time because I'm waiting for YouTube. So what I think I'll do, so that we have time to meditate before the tea break, I'm just going to ask you to sit quietly for a moment and just you think to yourself, why do you come here? What do you get from coming here on a Wednesday night? Or if it's your first time here on a Wednesday night because you meditated somewhere else, why do you meditate? Presumably you've meditated more than once, or you would be in the newcomers room. So what do you get from it? So just have a think about that for a minute. Okay. So, anybody willing to just briefly share something, what came up for you when I asked that question? Yes.
Perspective.
Perspective, say a little bit more.
So I don't really come or meditate looking for kind of, peace to calm down, but also just perspective on the way I think about things in the situation, different situations, different things that happen in my life, perspective on it.
Okay.
From outside of just my view.
Right. Okay. So something about a chance to step back and have a different viewpoint, so that you can come at things with a fresh perspective.
Yeah, or understand.
Or understand. Yeah, okay. Yeah, understand other people's perspectives or other things that are in play. Right, lovely. Different perspective. Anybody got any other reasons they meditate? Yes.
It's the pause. It's nowhere else that I'm have to be. Nothing to do.
Okay.
Can't do anything. So.
The pause. And what does that pause give you?
Calm.
Calm and quiet, did you say? Okay, so you get a sense of calmness and quietness from the pause of coming here. Lovely. So we've got perspective, calm, quietness. Anything else? Annabelle? Community. Okay, so one of the reasons you come along is to do this with like-minded people. Great. Okay. Calm, quiet, perspective, community. Anything else? Yes.
I meditate to try to find meaning and perspective in the current seismic changes that the world is going through during this decade.
Right, okay. So something about connecting to a sense of meaning and perspective in the face of the global complexity.
Yes.
Yeah, lovely. Okay. Anything else? Time for one more. Anybody? Yes.
Sort of connect with something that's not finite, like everything feels, most things are exhaustible or have a bottom, and I think it's nice to try and...
Right.
And it doesn't...
So can you say a little bit more about what you mean by not finite?
Yeah, like I think say it otherwise. Yeah, just that most things, like the things you mentioned, like status or money or any of the things that normally you're encouraged to pursue, feel like they are finite, and like there's actually they're never sustaining, and so it feels like something inherent to all of this is that it's kind of like bottomless somehow.
Okay. So for you, there's a sense of something beyond normal life, normal experience that you can kind of plug into somehow. Yeah. Was that what you were going to say, Joe? Yeah. Something.
The sense of the transcendental.
Okay.
Mysterious and wondrous going on that you can't put into words.
Okay, great. Well, some really good answers there, spanning the whole sort of spectrum, calming perspective, going beyond, connecting with others. So all of those things in a way are that's your own experience. So Sraddha is about trusting your own experience, trusting your practice and trusting your own experience. So we're going to explore this more, and I'm going to say more about it after the tea break. But just to make sure we get a chance to have a meditation before tea, we're going to do a mindfulness of breathing just now. And I'm just going to invite you to sort of, hopefully your mind's already kind of thinking about, why you're here and what you trust in about being here. So I'm just going to invite you to open up to that during this mindfulness of breathing before tea. So if you want to set yourselves up, make sure you've got, especially if you came in a little bit late, do make sure you take time to get the cushions you need to be comfortable. Okay. There we go. So just settling yourself. And allowing your awareness to drop inwards and down through the body. It's probably up in your head as you've been listening to me and reflecting for yourself. Just taking a breath and allowing that awareness to trickle down through the body, like water trickling down through the rocks. Connecting with your seat and the floor. An overall sense of your whole body experience. The mindfulness of breathing. Seeing if you can open up to trusting your direct experience of the breath. And whenever you get lost, can you just come back to that direct experience? Let yourself rest in that. The one thing we can always come home to is the breath and the body. And now just letting go of any effort that you're making to stay with the breath. And for the last few moments, just sitting in completely open, relaxed awareness, just trusting. Okay, so we're going to go and have a little tea break just now. So, and I just encourage you, there'll be a chance, well, depending on whether I get my timings right, hopefully there'll be a chance for some Q&A after the break at some point. So you might want to just have, be brave, speak to somebody, have a chat about your Sraddha, your practice, any questions you have about that, get to know each other a bit and have a cup of tea. So we'll see you back in here after the break. And let's keep this a silent space through the break. So if people do want to just stay quiet in here, they can do that. Arthur, are we going to give up on the tech? Oh, since when? Oh, okay. back. Marianne, are you sneaking in halfway through? Were you here for the first half, Marianne? Ariane, were you here? No. Yeah. Just hold back a sec, just see where the space is, because we had all the cushions before. Could someone from the team go and stand by the door and encourage people to move faster? Thanks, Leah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Right. Okay, love. Yeah. Great. Do we think that's everyone, Leah? As far as we can tell? Yeah. Great. Okay, lovely. Good. So we're back. Are we live now on YouTube? Good evening, YouTube. I'm very sorry that due to whatever they say, technical difficulties, we didn't manage to have you join us right at the beginning. So I do apologise for that. My name's Suvarnajyoti, and we're hopefully you can still kind of get some sense of what we've been doing. But yes, welcome to you all, and do chat to each other online if you wish to do so. Okay, so yeah, before the break, we were talking about Sraddha. And I just want to say a little bit more about that, and then we'll do some more practice before we finish this evening. So yeah, Sraddha is this trust, this confidence, this faith in your direct experience, rather than your stories. So I think it's very important to be very clear that that's when I'm saying, or when the tradition is saying to have trust in your direct experience, it means your actual sensory experience, not the stories that we tell ourselves about what is going on in our lives and what is going on in the world. That kind of that mental chatter, if you like, the kind of narrative that we've all got, that sort of at that monologue in our mind that's kind of constantly commenting, constantly, making sense of things. And not that that doesn't have its uses, of course, but be very wary of totally trusting in that. I mean, you can just ask yourself this one question: does your chattering mind always say helpful things to you? Is there anyone here whose chattering mind is always helpful? No, me neither. So the only thing, I mean, I think this is something that I come back to again and again and again in my own practice, when my own, I really struggle with my chattering mind, and I have a lot of negative stories that it tells me. And sometimes I'm really caught in those. And one of the things that I say to myself over and over, and it is an expression of this Sraddha, this trust, this confidence, that actually the only thing that I can really trust will never let me down is my direct sensory experience. It's the only thing that will be with you from the first moment, from the moment you're born till the moment you die, will be your experience of your body, of your breath. Everything else, can vanish at any moment. And I don't say that to be morbid. I know Buddhists have a bit of a rep for being a bit morbid, because we sort of reflect on death. But I just think it's really, really important for us to be very honest with ourselves that is the reality of our experience, whether we like it or not. And my experience is the more that I trust that coming back into my direct sensory experience, away from what my mind is telling me is wrong with me or wrong with the world, or what I should have that I don't have, or what I shouldn't have that I do have, and all of that exhausting nonsense, the more I just come back into that present moment experience, the more that my Sraddha builds, the more trust I have, the more I experience a freedom from doing that, and therefore the more I trust it the next time round. Yeah. So, let me see. I'm going to have time to say that. Yeah, I think I got time to say that. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to just say a little something about my own most extreme experience of this, which was way before I became a Buddhist. So my mother died suddenly. She was relatively young at the time. She was only 61, which might seem old to you, but trust me, I'm getting there quite. And suddenly, it doesn't seem so old. And she died very suddenly, and there were lots of tragic circumstances around that, and lots of additional tragic things that came to light after her death. And it utterly turned my world upside down. Amelie Odin was talking about how, deaths in a family can just completely, so it's like throwing a hand grenade into the middle of the family. And I still think of that as the moment that defines my life. Is that time, and it's because I had so much trust and faith and confidence in her and in her being there for me. I mean, I knew that she'd die one day, but she'd be old then, like proper old, And suddenly this rock, she was my rock. She was my touchstone. She was the point I always went back to. No matter where I went in the world, what I was doing, whatever trauma was going on for me, I could always go back to her. Now, I'm aware not everybody has that in their parents, but I did in her. And then suddenly it was gone. Completely in an instant. With no build up to it, nothing. Boom, it was gone. And so this idea that I now have many, many years later, in fact, I was 27 when she died, and I'm now two times 27. So I have a real sense at the moment that, I've lived as much life without her as I lived with her. So it feels like a very significant sort of turning point in my own life. But, one of the things that I've learned in the intervening 27 years is that, it's great if you've got people that you love, that you rely on, and or maybe a career that you enjoy. And, it's not that there's anything wrong with any of those things, but they can go at any minute. And so what our practice does, what my practice does, what the Buddha talked about, is what can you really rely on? What can you really place your heart on? And, the more I practiced, the more I was able to put my trust and my faith in the Buddha's teachings. And I then made a choice to go more and more and more down that route and put those teachings more and more centrally into my own life, and ultimately ask to join the order and take vows, etc. So that's the way my Sraddha took me. But whether you decide that you want to go down that route or not, whether your heart takes you down that particular route or not, right here and right now, you can trust your practice. You can trust your direct experience of that. Yeah. And I think, that it's very radical to do that. Another plug for Amelie Odin's Radical Dharma course starting next Wednesday. But it is very radical compared to what we're told to place our trust in. Success, Mr. Right, Ms. Right, or non-binary right person, whatever it, all of these things, not that there's anything wrong with any of them, but they can go at any minute. So my most extreme example of that was my mother's death. We see it around us all the time, don't we? Death, we see, how many times, I don't know, it's happened to me so many times, friends in relationships that I thought were absolutely rock solid, and I suddenly hear that they've broken up, and I'm like, what? How can that be? All sorts of things that we just think, will be forever are just not. So we're going to finish the evening with another mindfulness of breathing, and I feel like I've been a bit of a downer, but I want it to be a sort of a wake up call rather than a downer, in a sense that for you to really think about what can I trust, and also for me to really encourage you to trust in your practice. What I hear a lot when I've just been on a weekend retreat. There's some people here that were there with me, and it was a wonderful weekend. But what I hear a lot from people, particularly in the earlier stages of their practice, is kind of criticism about their own practice, kind of like, oh, I can't do this, and I can't stay concentrated, and I keep getting distracted, and and that sort of like a critical stance. And I'd like to, before we do a final practice of the mindfulness of breathing for tonight, I want to share with you a story. One of my teachers, a wonderful woman who's based in Bristol called Jyoti, and I hope she doesn't mind, I'm going to tell her little story here that she tells, which is that she was on a long retreat with a very, very distinguished teacher, and she had an opportunity to go and speak with him about her practice, and she was really quite self-critical about it, and she was just like, my meditation practice is just rubbish. Without missing a beat, he turned right to her and said, no, your practice is beautiful. Your practice is beautiful. So I'm really going to encourage you to think of that when we do this meditation practice now, this mindfulness of breathing. Your practice is beautiful, and that's Sraddha. That's where you can place your Sraddha, on your direct experience and on your own practice. And that will serve you. That will serve you in your life, whether you choose to be Buddhist or not. So I'm really going to encourage you to bring that into your heart and mind when we do this practice just now. Okay. So let's finish the evening with the mindfulness of breathing. So setting yourself up, connecting into your body, maybe just seeing if there was anything that particularly spoke to you from what I've been saying, and really thinking about what you can trust in your experience and the beauty of your practice and of what we're all doing here together this evening. So letting your awareness filter through. As if you're dropping a perfect drop of dark blue ink into a clear bowl of water. And the colour is just seeping through the whole bowl. Seeing if you can feel that in your awareness as it seeps through you. And I invite you to make an intention for this practice, that whenever your mind pings off or wanders off, which it probably will, to just keep inviting it back and trusting that direct experience of the body and the breath, and trusting in the beauty of that. The mindfulness of breathing. So just dropping any effort that you're making to stay with the breath. Just sitting in open awareness until I ring the bell. Trying to stay completely still for the last few moments. Just sitting. Yeah, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, folks, for this evening. Next, hopefully see you next week. I'm going to be continuing this theme of Sraddha, and next week we're going to be exploring it in relation to the Metta Bhavana. So Sraddha, the return, is the sequel is next week. And just before we finish this evening, just some of you, I know some of you know, our aim here at the centre is to try to be as accessible as we can to as many people as possible, live and online. And so those of us that teach at the centre and that support the classes, we don't get paid to do that. We do that because we have a passion for practice and for the benefits and the value of practice. And so that's our way of giving back to the centre, giving back for the value that we have received in our own lives through the practice that the LBC facilitates. So if you'd like to join in that spirit of generosity and you're in the position to do so, if you are able to give us a donation to help us continue to do that work, and I think hopefully somebody's putting that link on there for the YouTube people as well. That would be fantastic. And as you're regulars here, particularly if you feel inspired to set up a standing order for the centre, which Amelie Odin, how can they do that? Just go onto the website to set up a standing order. And then that's just a sense that you're giving on a regular basis and contributing to this community. So if you're able to do that, that's fantastic. And if you're not able to do that or you don't want to do that, that's absolutely fine as well. You're equally welcome to be here. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. We will hopefully see you next week. Do come and say hello. Myself, Amelie Odin, Diane Arthur will be at the door as you leave. So please do feel free to come and say hello. And I did realise halfway through that meditation that I didn't do any questions and answers, did I? I missed that bit out. Sorry about that. So you'll have to come and ask me the questions at the door or come back next week. So anyway, we'll say good night for tonight and hopefully see you next week. Or Amelie Odin will see you next week on his Radical Dharma course. Good night.